Hey everyone, welcome to Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD, and today we'll be reviewing chapters 1099 and 1100 of One Piece. If this is your first time on my channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, and subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into this review. All right, so I'm gonna kind of speed through 1099. I didn't get the chance to record it because of the holidays and stuff, so I'm gonna, touch on some important aspects that I didn't get to talk about, and then we're gonna go straight into 1100. So 1099 was amazing. We randomly get a situation where Bonnie is running around. She's trying to get cardio on because she can't wait to go on all these trips with Kuma. And while she's running, she spontaneously ages, right? And so the people in the house are confused as hell because, it's the church, no one really comes in or out. And so they're like, who's the babe running? And then it turns out that it's Bonnie. I was honestly, as I read this, I was mad confused. I was like, reading back up and I was like, wait, when did this happen? What's going on? I didn't quite understand what was being like shown to us, but it turns out that everyone involved was confused as well because no one really knew where she got the devil fruit that aged her up, how she was able to age up. She's been locked up in the church the entire time, so where could she have got this devil fruit? So initially, I'm like, okay, Kuma is a revolutionary, just kind of like pirates. They travel to a lot of places. Maybe he picked one up on his journeys. But then I was like, why would he bring a devil fruit back to the church? That doesn't really make sense. That doesn't seem to be the case. And so then, it kind of dinged to me that okay, maybe she's big eater, Bonnie. Devil fruits, quote unquote, can choose you. So maybe it was one of those situations where the age fruit appeared in one of her fruit bowls and she ate that fruit, right? Now, here's the thing. We don't know how devil fruit reincarnation works. We have a clue because of Whitebeard. We have another clue because of Smiley, but we don't really know exactly verbatim how it works. But one thing we do know is Vegapunk told us that it's all about desire, right? What did Bonnie desire the most? She wanted to reach the age of 10. That way her illness, her sickness would be gone, and she would be able to travel around the world with her father outside of this church. So she had a very, very strong will and desire for that devil fruit, and so it would make sense for it to appear before her if it somehow got reincarnated and then she ended up eating it. A lot of speculation, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's along the lines of where Oda was going. Also, it gives us a lot to think about, like with Luffy getting the Nika fruit and really wanting freedom. So it's that kind of deal. Now, something else that I thought would be very, very interesting was, what if it's not a devil fruit ability? Not well. What if it is a devil fruit ability, but it is not derived from a devil fruit? So something I said in the earlier chapters with Saturn was the fact that like I'm not sure if his ability is a devil fruit. Now, if it is, we said might be the Unibushi or whatever, and some of the other yokai of Japan. It could be, a Zoan type yokai devil fruit. But I was like, hey, what if the celestial dragons, what if the five elders are a little bit special in a certain way? And what if they're able to receive powers directly from Emu? So they don't need a devil fruit. They either get them directly or they're shades of Emu, something of that nature. And so if that's the case, something else I didn't mention in one of my reviews is, what if Saturn is the father of Joribani? I was thinking this would make so much sense. I'm sure that there are people out there that have way more in-depth theories, but I'm just gonna keep it like this. Joribani has been a plight, a plague on the world government. Kuma has been as well. And my thing is like, how has she been allowed to, for so long, get away with all the things she's done? And I was like, okay, maybe Kuma made a deal with the world government when they had when they did whatever that was to her. And originally, before this chapter, the latest chapter, I thought, it was still up in the air that, maybe she was a clone. There was all manner of things that could have happened to her, right? And so I was thinking maybe, Saturn keeps running into Kuma for whatever reason. Saturn keeps running into Kuma. I'm not sure if he was aware of the relationship of Kuma and Jenny. Part of me feels like that he had to have been, but I wouldn't be surprised if the celestial dragon that ended up, quote unquote, wifing up Jenny was Saturn. Now, it's a little weird to me because I don't get that impression from him, but you know what? One Piece doesn't really delve into those kind of relationships and type of affairs and adult material. So who's to know? Maybe the Gorosei be piping. Who knows? And so what if it's a situation where not only did he like Jenny just because not only is she attracted, but he knew she had a connection to the Revolutionary Army, knew she had a connection to Kuma, and really just wanted to stick it to him, so he stuck it to her. And what if not only is the illness that Ginny got, not only did Ginny get the illness from Saturn, because think about it, it's an illness that is affected by sun and moonlight, and we know that these guys are kind of demons. The sun is the hero of the people, and the enemy of the wicked and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had some kind of illness like that. But what if it's a situation where it's kind of like a ancient STD that whatever race the Gorosei or whatever whatever devil they've sold their soul to, this is part of that, right? And they have their own treatments, they have their own methods of curing it. So I thought that would be super interesting. Also, if the Gorosei are in some way, some shape, some form able to develop devil fruit powers or gain devil fruit powers, but without the need of a devil fruit, what if it was passed to Bonnie? And so while she is running around, just desiring the mess out of being able to age, she gets that ability. Now, I had this one really cool theory where, when she uses her abilities, she doesn't go age, whatever, or, gum, ice, kind of things. But then I was like, you know what? It is like that. I'm sure there's numerous people in the One Piece world that don't do the name, the attack name scheme of saying their devil fruit name twice and then whatever. So I guess that wouldn't count, but it's something that I'm very, very open to. So anyway, to just speed through the rest of the chapter, the old king comes back. Kind of reminds me a lot of what's his name from Drunk Wapple from Drum Kingdom. So we're seeing a lot of repetition and repetition and repetition. We're seeing kings that treat their kingdoms terribly. Something happens to the kingdom, they leave and then they come back. We're seeing situations with the celestial dragons where they take in multiple. They call them wives, but at this point they're more like concubines. They take in concubines, and then when they pump them and dump them, when they no longer want them, they leave. And so the old king comes back. Kuma's like, hell no. We see one of the biggest paw bubbles we've ever seen from him. It's destroyed. The people rejoice. They put him into power. He doesn't really want power. And, obviously this new king starts blaspheming him, starts doing propaganda, and basically tells everyone he's a tyrant, and that's how he got the moniker Tyrant King Kuma. Made perfect sense. I said in my other videos that would be how it happened. That either the world government or the previous king would be upset with him, you know, call him a tyrant, and bada bing, bada boom, now he's a tyrant. We see this all the time with those in the powers that be. They get to set the rules, they get to create the narrative, and so I think this is just going to be another callback to something later on in the future, right? And so after that point, Kuma sets out to find someone to, cure Bonnie. And it was really, really cool to see Oda call back all these islands that he sent the Straw Hats to. And it turns out they're all places that Kuma visited in hopes of looking for a cure for Bonnie. And, I'm a lot more willing to accept things in fictional media. If something happens, it happens. As long as it's not a major ass pull, it's not that the biggest deal in the world to me. So, I'm going to be real with you. I never once gave two shits about, how did he know where to send these people, right? I just kind of assumed maybe he just sent them randomly and fate factored in and sent them to the right place, or I just factored in that, oh, maybe he's just happened to have been there before and knew about the place and sent them there. But now we're actually getting substantiated like evidence that like he's been to these places, he knows these places. When he sent these guys wherever he sent them, he legitimately had the intention and knowledge of where he was putting them and what would be best for them. Also, I'm jumping ahead to 1,100, but we found out that this is actually after the time where he got his, actually no, it's not. I lied. I was gonna say it's after he got his memories removed, but he still had his memories at the time when he sent the Straw Hats. That hadn't happened yet, so never mind. Excuse me on that part, but. I really thought that was really, really, really cool. Then he eventually stumbles upon Vegapunk. Vegapunk says, "Oh, this is Sapphire Scale. I'm able to do some newfangled advanced medical surgery involving stem cells and yada yada blah blah blah. I can help her, but it's going to be very expensive." He checks out Kuma's blood, finds out Kuma is a Buccaneer. He's like, "Yo, that's incredible. I can't wait to use you. Can I use your blood for clones and stuff? And can I do? And if you allow me to do that, then I will, cover the surgery for you." Obviously, it's going to be it's too good to be true because the powers that be will never let Vegapunk get away with this, and that's what brings us into chapter 1,100. So in chapter 1,100, long story short, Kizaru is sent over to the island. Saturn is talking to them over Dendemushi, and he's basically talking to Vegapunk like, I don't know why you thought this was a good idea. I don't know why you thought like we would even like let you do this. Like that's kind of wild that you think we would let not only like a quote unquote pirate, but like a member of the Revolutionary Army, like people that directly oppose us, not just like at least with pirates, they're just doing whatever. These dudes are straight up gunning for us. They hate our guts. They're trying to usurp us. They're trying to do all this stuff. You're going to like help them, and you think we would allow that? And so he's like, so we have a couple stipulations, and as long as you follow these stipulations, then fuck it, we'll humor this deal of yours, right? Stipulation number one: you got to become a warlord. We can't have clones of this guy that has actively, went against the world government, working for us. Which honestly, that's super fucked. Because can you imagine being someone that was like liberated by Kuma, that knows Kuma, that loves Kuma, and like there's some bullshit happening on your island, and all of a sudden these pacifistas show up that look like Kuma, and at first you're kind of excited because you're like, oh my god, it's Kuma. Kuma's the nicest guy I've ever met in my life. He's such a cool dude, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden it just opens up, blast, 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 and you just see lasers, and you're like, what the fuck? Kuma, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And you have no clue. So that's kind of messed up for like people that aren't like super close friends with Kuma. Because if you're super close friends with Kuma, you kind of have an idea of what's happening, right? You either have an idea of what's happening, or you just know in your heart of hearts, like, this isn't Kuma. This is something that the world government did. Like, if you're just a random Joe Schmo that was like saved by the revolutionaries, that was saved by Kuma, and like this happening, you're just like lost. You're like, whoa, what happened? So that's the first stipulation. The second stipulation is that they're going to turn him into a cyborg. They want to experiment on him. If like basically Saturn honestly is very smart for this. Even Kizaru agrees. He was like, having him on our side would be tremendous. And so he's like, we have the potential to have a very powerful, tremendous, great weapon at our disposal. We're not going to miss this chance. And so the second stipulation is we're going to turn you into a cyborg. We're going to turn you into the most powerful weapon. Something that really bothered me was in one of the translations I was reading, Vegapunk said something about like this is going to be his greatest weapon. And it kind of bothered me. I really wish he had said like, I don't know if he said this or if it was just translated like this. I really wish he had said this is going to be my greatest invention to date, because, I don't think he meant it to be a weapon. Just like similar to the Battle Frankies. Like, yes, they have weapons and stuff, but like Frankie didn't mean for them to be like weapons of war and stuff. He just thought like lasers and all that, like all the like gunware and all that stuff was cool. And so it kind of bothered me a bit that he did that. But Vegapunk gets a little bit redeemed in my eyes, because then the third stipulation is given, and that's that he has to lose all autonomy will and agency. And after hearing that, Vegapunk loses his shit. And I'm so happy to hear that because I've been kind of having issues with Vegapunk. Vegapunk, in my opinion, is the stereotypical anime genius, right? They're not necessarily bad or good, like the Orochimarus and who's the captain from Bleach that does all the experiments and stuff. Like they're not technically they're not really evil. They're just pursuing like science and knowledge, and they don't care about like ethics and morals so much as results. And so if that means doing some morally questionable things, some fucked up things in the pursuit of science, knowledge, power, and truth, they're gonna do those things. They're not gonna go out of their way to be dickheads to people that are bad or mean, but they want to do their research and achieve what they achieve. And so it was just this entire time it seemed that like Vegapunk got a pass because he was just it was a combination of one, he just seems to be really naive, which explains why he thought he could do this, make this deal with Kuma without, the likes of Saturn and such getting involved. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is like, um, just oh, it's okay. Like he just pursues science. Like I remember when Vegapunk originally was supposed to work for the Revolutionary Army, but he turned them down simply because he's like, y'all can't pay me. Y'all can't pay me. Like I'm trying to do a bunch of experiments. I'm trying to do this, that, and the other, and y'all don't have the funds to pay for this and afford all that. And that's the reason he never joined the Revolutionary Army. And like it's kind of fucked, but like it kind of makes a lot of sense. And yes, even though he ended up working for like some of the worst people in the world, a lot of good has come from him being able to work for them and having the funds and resources and such to bring things into existence that have had a well, I was going to say a net positive effect on the world. I wouldn't say it's net positive, but let's just say a very positive, impactful impact on the world. So anyway, Vegapunk loses his shit. He's like, that's tantamount to killing him. I would never do that. I would never allow that. Like that's insane. That's terrible. Blah, yada yada yada. And I was very happy to see. Okay, finally, like you do have like a line. You do have a line. Thank you. But Saturn's like, that's just how it's gonna be. Luckily, Kuma's like, yeah, that's straight. And like Vegapunk is shocked, and he's like, look, all I want is Bonnie to be okay. Like that's what's important to me. That's my desire. That's what I want. And if you're telling me that like all it takes is me, selling my soul to the devil to save her, then like so be it. I'll do it. And honestly, greatest dude ever. I think without question, Kuma's backstory is probably the greatest backstory in all of One Piece currently. Now, don't get me wrong, this could easily be recency bias. Also, it feels weird for me to say because like I've kind of felt like this flashback has been rushed, but even though it's been like rushed, but like chock full of like content and like you get the beats that you need, the important hard hitting moments. We're getting them. So like it's crazy, but I definitely do think this is probably at the end of the day probably going to be the number one like most fucked up, sad, tear jerking backstory in all of One Piece. In fact it inspires me to do like maybe a top five or a top 10 what's it called backstories in One Piece video. So I don't know. Let's see if I do it. So after Kuma consents to the deal, they immediately go into action and work on it. Vegapunk is excited. This is actually the part I was talking about earlier where he's like, I can finally make the weapon of my dreams. I'm wondering once again if that's going to be rectified in the Viz translation, because once again, I don't like the idea that he actually is using the terminology weapon. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. And the whole time we're seeing bits and pieces of the satellites that we have like heard about like from Eureka, and he's just talking about like how he's having Eureka moments and he has all these ideas and he just doesn't have the time and capacity to like write them all down. And if only there were like five of them, like one person to like write down his ideas and another person to like eat and sleep for him. And so like he at this moment is conceptualizing the satellites. I forget what YouTuber it was. It was either like maybe Teching or Best Guy Ever. But they hinted at the fact that maybe he used some of the DNA from Kuma, some of that what's that Buccaneer blood. Sorry, you that Buccaneer blood to make some of his satellites. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's in Atlas. Maybe it's in York. I it's a possibility. It's a little weird. They don't have the right builds, but that's a possibility. Also, someone else mentioned something interesting. There's an alternate future version of Bonnie that she uses where she's swole, and I was wondering if what if that was a future where she was born with Buccaneer blood, but that makes zero. Never mind. I made that theory up just now as I was talking, but then I debunked it as I was talking because I was like, well, Kuma's not her real blood, so like there would never be a future where she had Buccaneer blood. So uh, anyway, I digress. So he's rapidly working on all the projects and obviously coming up with the ideas for the satellites, and then we see Kuma, Bonnie, Sentamaru, Vegapunk, Kizaru all chilling, eating, having a good old time. I think it's kind of assumed that Kizaru is there to keep an eye on everything to make sure, Kuma honors his promise. They don't try to do anything crazy. They don't try to, get away from Vegapunk. That Kizaru can keep an eye on Vegapunk, and so we can kind of assume that the 6 months to a year or whatever that Kuma and Juri Bani are on this island. Kizaru is kind of working as an overseer for them. Also, I'm very curious if he has some kind of unique relationship to Saturn, just because it seems weird to me that like he makes a lot of jokes and does a lot of really annoying things, and times like shut up and blah blah blah, and doesn't kind of like impose his will or force or dominance on him. So I'm wondering what the bigger picture is with Kizaru, where Kizaru came from, how he joined the Marines in the first place, why he's okay supporting Saturn. But I think another thing that people are sleeping on is I think when we get back to the main timeline, we're gonna have a situation where Kizaru has to make this decision. He's like, "Fuck, I really don't want to do this. I like Kuma, I like Vegapunk, I like Bonnie, I like Sentamaru. I don't know if I'm able to carry out orders cut like cold blooded and cutthroat like I've been doing all this time." Anyway, so after they do the initial experiments and do the initial cure and stuff, Bonnie is all set to go. They send her back to Sorbet. There was an extra stipulation that Kuma had where she is not to know about any of this because obviously she's going to rebel. She's going to want to be with him. She's going to hate the idea of him losing his memories and whatnot. Part of me is wondering if he removed some of her memories at some point later. But anyway, they're back at Sorbet, they're chilling, and Kuma's telling her that he's gonna write to her all the time, that he's gonna visit, that they're gonna go places. And as he's about to like leave, or like as they're chilling and whatnot, this Cypherpol agent Alpha shows up. I think she's a Cypherpol 8 agent Alpha, and they're like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Oh, we're here to give her treatment and make sure everything takes and blah blah blah." So she's right as rain, and we're building a house right, our accommodations right there. And on the surface level, that seems really nice. It seems like, oh, they have a nurse and medical staff, but don't be fooled. I think it's quite obvious that they're just there, just like Kizaru was. But they don't need Kizaru anymore because that's a little girl. They're just there to keep an eye on her, make sure that the agreement is honored, that Kuma doesn't like try to sneak by and see her or visit her or take her away or disappear or something like that. And so that honestly rubbed me the wrong way. And also, Kuma is super trusting in my opinion because like I would have been like, no, y'all need to go. Y'all need to go. No, my people's got it. There's like some doctors here. I got friends here. They'll look after her because I would be scared to death that if I did something wrong, if anything messed up, the world government would just refuse to honor their promise and do something to Bonnie. And literally, they are right there next to Bonnie at all times. That would be a non-starter for me. But anyway, Kuma realizes what's happening. He embraces it. He said, "All right, fine," and goes away. He's sailing. He's doing his warlord thing. and he's writing letters to her. I skipped ahead. Before this is happening, we're kind of going around the world and seeing the reactions of various people, finding out that Kuma is a warlord, particularly the current warlords. Also, speaking of warlords, it was said that they need one of the reasons that they were looking for one was because Ace did something to one of the warlords, and it makes me think he killed one of the warlords. And I was super confused because the only warlord I can remember Ace like killing, sorry, not killing, but fighting was Jinbei, and like Jinbei's alive, and Jinbei still became a warlord. So like that's confusing to me. Also, I was like, is it because they offered him the position of warlord and he didn't take it? So if not, then this is really big news. This means that at some point in the story, Ace fought, killed, dethroned a warlord, and we're gonna find out about that. And maybe it's a warlord that's still active in the world. Maybe not as active because obviously he'd be making waves and we know his name. But maybe it's another character that we're gonna run into. So anyway, let me pull up real quick some of the warlord reactions. So we have Doflamingo, and Doflamingo likes him because he's like Kuma the Tyrant. That sounds like another villain. So he's like, okay, that sounds like a homie, a friend I'm gonna have. Robin tells Crocodile. Crocodile couldn't give a damn. He just wants to make sure that his utopia plan is going through. We see Mihawk reading the paper, and he just kind of has these lines over his eyes. So I think that's just Oda's way of expressing that, like, he's not, that his thoughts are he's not happy on it. Randomly, we have Alvida and Kobe, and she's like, he looks as big as Whitebeard. Who do you think's stronger, me or him? And Kobe's lying through his teeth saying she is. Whitebeard. Whitebeard is looking at him. We see Ace and oh wait, maybe it was Jinbei. But then does Jinbei become a warlord again? That's super confusing. But he's like, so they finally found a replacement. That's great news, Jinbei. So I guess maybe it was when he fought him. Okay. We find out about wait. Also, Jinbei apparently talks about they have a reigning king in our ranks. So interesting. So is there's a king in Whitebeard's crew? Maybe I'm missing something. That's interesting. Anyway, then we have Boa. She doesn't really care. We have Moria. He doesn't really care. He seems to be like sleeping while he's getting the news. So that's whatever. And then we see the revolutionaries. Dragon is very quiet, pensive. He's just like not really talking. Sabo and Koala are freaking out. They're like, doesn't that mean he answers direct to world government? Why would he do this? But I'm sure they have some clue, right? And so at the very end of the chapter, Kuma's just penning this letter to Bonnie, and he's wrapping it up. And as he wraps it up, we see him approaching, I believe, the Goa Kingdom, where Luffy is at the moment. And I'm trying to, I could have done the timelines, but I was lazy and I didn't. It's obviously after Sabo and Ace. Well, duh. It's obviously after Sabo and Ace is left, and Luffy is training so that he can start his journey. And so now I'm very curious. I'm curious as hell as to what did Kuma do on this island? Did he get to meet Luffy? But obviously Luffy either didn't get to meet him or doesn't remember meeting him. It could be memory. Like he could have wiped his memory. So that could be a really interesting thing. So I can't wait to see exactly what happened. Why Kuma went to this island? Is Dragon gonna show up on this island because he's like, why are you near my son? Why did the world government send you here? Also, can we just talk about how freaking adorable Kuma's Jolly Roger on his ship is? At first, I laughed when I saw it. I was like, come on, Kuma. But then I realized just now as I was editing that it's the same exact picture that Bonnie drew for him earlier. And if that is not the freaking sweetest, most adorable, like, heart-melting thing, I don't fucking know what is. But that shit is adorable. But yeah, One Piece has been crazy. One Piece has been phenomenal. I'm hyped. I'm excited. And I just cannot wait to see what Oda is cooking. I do want to reiterate and state I am kind of concerned that the manga has becoming a little bit more of a storyboard for the anime. So I'm thinking that Oda is starting to like not flesh things out quite so much in the manga, But then when it gets released in anime, we're gonna get all sorts of like extra content that isn't filler, but it's stuff that just Oda was not able to fit into the manga. So we'll see how that goes. But honestly, One Piece has been an amazing ride so far. I am loving the Egghead Island arc. There is so much going on with these flashbacks and stuff that can genuinely entertain me and keep me satiated for weeks. And on top of that, we still have to get back to the actual events of what's happening on Egghead. And now I think another really important part of why we're getting these flashbacks is we now know that like both Bonnie and Kuma have this idea of the sun god Nika, which also, speaking of sun god Nika, I think it was kind of crazy how Kizaru was also singing and dancing to the like drums of liberation. So I'm wondering if that's foreshadowing too. I wonder how much Kizaru knows about Luffy and him being Nika and stuff like that. Kuma, in my opinion, is probably going to be on his way here. The Iron Giant is probably heading on his way here, and Luffy and Kizaru are probably going to get back up soon, and maybe the great saint that is Kuma is going his last great sacrifice, his last great martyrish act is going to be helping the sun god Nika to liberate the world before he dies. And then, maybe Bonnie, who also, was raised in the church, also raised, hearing the legend and the lore of Sun God Nika, is going to be a accomplice of Luffy. Not saying she's going to join the crew or anything, but she might be a Grand Fleet member and do her role to dethrone the world government, because obviously they've done nothing but cause trouble for her. They kidnapped, raped her mom, killed her mom. They turned her only father figure into a cyborg, made them work for him, and also his whole childhood, who was a slave. So yeah, Bonnie definitely has a bone to pick with them, and I just can't wait to see the scene when she initially finds out what Kuma did. I think that's gonna be a real tearjerker, and I would lose my shit if the theory that Saturn is in fact Bonnie's dad comes true, and how she handles and reconciles with that. Anyway, this has been Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I hope you guys had an awesome Thanksgiving. I ate like hell, so that was fucking fire. Anyway, take care. Peace. Have a great day. This has been Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD.